Good afternoon. Welcome back to United TV. Manchester United played Leeds tonight. We're going to be looking forward to that game. I think that's going to be a good one as well. We're going to be doing a stream after the match. Also, a lot of transfer news, a lot of speculation also regarding potential replacements for Michael Carrick, whether Michael Carrick's going to stay or not. And that might be a bit of the focus of the discussion today. I did find this earlier today just to illustrate there's a huge amount of transfer news at the moment, and I think a lot of it stems from Manchester United trying to work out what the best situation is in terms of what midfielders are available. There's a huge amount of midfield targets from all the players we talked about. This is just a small sample size, but I saw this and I think it just goes to show that there's a lot of stories out there regarding midfielders, a lot of Premier League midfielders, a lot of midfielders in Spain, which a couple of channels talked about earlier today as well, that are being linked. And I think at the moment, what it represents to me is that there's a lot of good options out there. If Manchester United don't get one or two of them, there's going to be a lot of other good options. And there's also a lot of left backs linked, left wing players linked as well. I think United have got a lot of targets. And I think what we might see is it's only, 13th of April, so a long way to go regarding potential transfers. What we might see is over the next few weeks, a couple of these players, either they make some decisions, we might see a couple of players that are linked with different moves, and maybe they get new contracts at the club. Same way like Maguire stays at Manchester United for another year. We might see this list drop down quite a lot. But I think also a lot of it comes down to Manchester United doing the groundwork, I suppose, speaking to players, speaking to agents, working out how much each player is going to cost, whether they actually want to join Manchester United. A little bit similar to the goalkeeper situation, where we were linked with about 10 plus goalkeepers last summer. Eventually, we got Lamans. It took a long time, but I think we made the right decision. And it's similar to looking at different strikers from Watkins, Ekatike, Gyökeres. Now, there's so many options available. I feel a bit relaxed regarding what's going to happen. I think there's some good options out there. There's some options as well that maybe no one's going to agree on the best option 100%. But I think what we can all agree on is there's a lot of good midfield players out there. If you don't get Anderson, there's other good options available. Everybody's got a favourite. And it's not about getting one player either. We're going to have to buy a few players. So, in terms of transfers, like if you've got any comments or questions, you definitely get those in. There's a lot to discuss about. And I think with the head coach situation, it feels a little bit further down the line where we started with a huge shortlist. What we have seen is over the last few weeks, maybe last couple of months, gradually, managers get different jobs. Some managers decide to extend their contracts with their respective countries if they're in the World Cup, or whether they want to make a decision on the future already. And gradually, this kind of shortlist has like disappeared. And it seems that at the moment, this is the most recent story I've seen regarding Carrick. And the story is pretty much the only other option seems to be at the moment, as it stands, Nagelsmann. And I'm looking at this thinking a lot of options, to be honest, don't really excite me. And I look at them and think, well, when you have De Zerbi, Areola, Glasner, like the list is endless. And you look at, say, Thomas Frank was linked as well. And you look at all these options, and I just don't see significant evidence that these are going to be much better options. But again, this is something that's going to play out. So I'm going to jump into the comments. I can't actually see any comments at the moment, but I'll jump into them and just say for me that just be relaxed. There's a lot of options out there, a lot of potential good players out there, and I'm just thinking in terms of like a head coach situation, is it worth just sorting this out as soon as possible? Because I don't know if there's I suppose if Manchester United beat Leeds tonight, you probably look at the league table and say it's almost a done deal, isn't it? Champions League football. If you've got to finish in the top five, and looking at the situation with Chelsea losing like the last few games, maybe Champions League football is almost like locked up, and it won't be an issue. And maybe if that happens, Manchester United will go right. Okay, just make a decision, because I think sometimes when you're looking at this huge list of transfers, and it is that there is a lot of, there's a lot of players linked. Some of these players, whether it's like Anderson, Wharton, Belieber, just to go down the list, some of these players might be looking at the Manchester United situation and actually thinking, well, maybe we're going to wait to see what decisions made regarding the head coach, because that could have an impact on potentially which players are going to be definitely starting, which players maybe they're going to be struggling to get a first team position. And again, that'll feed into the Kobe Mainoo situation, because if you're Mainoo, and I'll just say this before I jump into the live chat, if you're Kobe Mainoo, you had a manager at one point under Eric Ten Hag where you started every single game, Then you had a situation with Amrin where you didn't start any games, and now you've got a situation with Michael Carrick where you do start every single game. If you're Kobe Mainu about to sign a contract extension, you probably want to know what's happening. If Michael Carrick stays, you probably put pen to paper straight away because you know you're going to be playing every single match. But if potentially a Nagelsmann came in and looked at some new signings, if Kobe Mainu then becomes a bench option again, maybe that's why he's thinking about it. So I think a lot of these players, and if I was a football player as well, you're looking at putting pen to paper for maybe 5 years of your life as a football player. If you then join a club, say like Trafford, we've seen the situation there. You join a club at maybe the wrong time, you're now not even getting games. That could be a problem as well. So let's have a look and see what people think. Again, at this stage of the season, there's probably going to be a crazy, crazy amount of news, and there's going to be loads of different stories. Ollie Biscuit Barrel, good to see you in the chat. I did see you posted a comment recently, and I think with this one, the guys, this is something that we can definitely, in terms of like the channel and growing the channel, the key thing is visibility. The key thing is that there's a pinned social comment. Everybody's welcome to join Facebook group, Discord, everything around the channel as well. And if you're able to, we're watching live now. If you're able to share the stream on any format at all, it does actually help reach new people. Because at the moment, things will grow slowly, things will grow steadily, but it does kind of give it a little bit of a boost if you can share it to different things as well. We've got most of the old people, say old, we've got most of the regular squad members here as well, so that's all good. So let's go into a few of the questions. So Jim is saying we need to do a signing early as a statement of intent. I do kind of agree with this as well. I'm thinking, I suppose with this one, I don't think it needs to be an expensive signing, does it? It needs to. It feels like we need to get the ball rolling, and I'm thinking last season, probably the first signing we made, thinking ball rolling was it probably was Cunha because Cunha had a release clause. It was a straightforward deal to do, and once we got that deal done, it kind of opened the door to. I was looking at thinking, okay, we got Cunha in now. Then you got Mbeumo wants to join Manchester United, and things seem to be things seem to start quite quickly last season. Okay, it didn't go like super quickly once we started, but in terms of this, if Manchester United need to buy, say, I don't know, two midfielders, three midfielders, it would be good if we could get one in early. And at the moment, you'd look at the list and go, right, Anderson won't be an early signing, Wharton or Believer won't be an early signing, Tonali probably not. But you can look at other players like Hayden Hackney. You could look at a Garner. You could look at maybe an Angelo Stiller. There's quite a few out there as well. You say even like Gomez. You look at these players and think there is no reason why Manchester United can't make an earlier signing, just at least to kind of get the ball rolling as well. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? Where that is it going to be? Are Manchester United going to be able to make some of these signings without even resolving who the head coach is? I think they need to just like resolve that as soon as possible. That would be my view. So, well, yeah, we're kind of like closing in on 450 as well. So hopefully tonight there'll be a big match against Leeds. That might be a good way to grow as well. We will. I've got a panel lined up for that as well, so it should be a good one. Cody's saying you've got to also consider how the midfields fit together. And I think this at this point in time that I was kind of of the assumption. I mean, I don't know what other people think, but I was of the mindset thinking that it was a matter of time that when Kobe Mainoo re-signs rather than if he does. And you think once Mainoo's in there, you've got to look at next season as a completely different situation. Even for Carrick as well, you've got 2 games a week instead of one. It's a completely different situation, and I'm thinking that in some matches you're going to be looking at it thinking, well, Kobe Mainu, he might start one game, then maybe the next player will start a different game. And I think it's like about how does the midfield fit together? Does Bruno Fernandes even stay? I mean, there's a lot of things up in the air. And I think regarding like the Maguire situation, regarding Bruno Fernandes, it is also key that Manchester United as a club and in terms of trying to organise things, they need to know that he's going to stay. If he is going to stay, how do you fit in midfielders? Because you're going to have Kobe Mainu, you're going to have Bruno Fernandes. What sort of player do you want to play alongside those? Also, if you're resting Bruno Fernandes or Kobe Mainu, which players are going to be able to do what they do? So it is like I think a big consideration that you're saying, Cody. But when you look at the list, I see some players like Anderson and think that he's pretty versatile. He's got a lot of attributes. He's not going to be a direct replacement for Casemiro. I don't think anybody is. But you can look at the situation and say, well, I do think that he would be a no-brainer in terms of like you can play him alongside these players. If Mainoo's on the bench, you got the work rate from Anderson as well, wing the ball back. He does a bit of everything, and I don't really. There's a few players on this list. I think that yeah, Tonali, you got Anderson. These players fit into any sort of team. I think when you're looking at other players, that Angela Stiller, and you look at Wharton and think, okay, there's things these players are very good at. Are they going to be good options? I mean, actually, when I look at that list, I see Edison there. I kind of almost forgotten about Edison, but he's another player that we have talked about quite a bit. But I think he's going to be one that maybe there's just better options out there at the moment. So Jim's saying anyone but Belieber would be underwhelming. I think Belieber, it might depend on the price, doesn't it? Because I think when we're looking at signings you can make early, I did say this. I thought in January, if Manchester United were looking at a January signing, you got João Gomez there. And I think maybe what you're seeing is some of the performances he's been putting in recently, though they're going to get relegated, like Wolves are going to get relegated, but Gomez has been playing pretty well. And I think he would be a good signing. Obviously, with this one, that one signing's not going to be enough in the midfield. But I think in terms of Gomez, he would have been a player that we saw quite big money going for Paqueta from West Ham, and we saw players that of teams that were fighting relegation were accepting decent money. It's one of these situations, isn't it, where United it wouldn't have cost a load of money, and I think Hayden Hackney he was available for 30 million. Maybe I'm just wondering whether United for whatever reason, I don't think it's the right decision. I think they should have got someone in January, but maybe they're looking at potentially if he moves in the summer, maybe he'd be a little bit cheaper. Jim's saying Scott would be a good first. I'm trying to think how much he's going to cost. I can't remember if we saw a price tag for him. Chris is saying I don't think Believer's good enough. He's been poor for a while. There's a lot of there is actually a few stories regarding Belieber as well of potential injuries that maybe haven't been fully disclosed. And to be honest, I mean, that doesn't really make me think, great, let's get Belieber. Because if there's some injuries that have been hampering him this season, then that is a different consideration and a different concern as well. So if Belieber's been playing badly, it's obviously not great. But if he's been playing badly because he's been playing while injured, that's obviously a bit of a disappointment as well. I mean, if they're managing his minutes while substituting him from the outside, it just looks like Belieber is having a disappointing season after being extremely good last season. And if anything, that's got to be pushing the price down. That if he's injured and he's playing, then it's a bit stupid on Brighton's part because you're going to make things worse. And if he's managing minutes and struggling with fitness, struggling with injury as well, that's obviously a concern for United. When you're talking about the sort of money that we're going to be looking at paying out, you've got to look at it and think, well, a player that's at what 21, 22, when they if they're struggling with injuries and form, then you shouldn't be dropping whatever Brighton wanted, like 100 plus million. That's crazy, isn't it? I think he's that one where there's definitely potential, and I wouldn't write off a younger player based on like this season. But I think you need to look at how much money Brighton want for him. I think Brighton just want too much money for their players, and maybe it's a greed situation that's going to be. Yeah, I think there's definitely a deal to be done last summer, and United were interested, but I don't see any other club suddenly like blowing other teams out of the water to get Belieber. I think Belieber's going to be dropping down the list in terms of players, and I think United they have said that he's still on the short list, and they still are interested in Belieber, but I think it's just a case of they don't want to rule anything out. If Manchester United ruled out Belieber, it just weakens their negotiating position a little bit, doesn't it? And I think if United keep things a bit vague and almost keep interest in Belieber, Wharton, Stiller, Anderson, all these players, it kind of means that we're not saying I don't think Manchester United should say we're all out for this one player because if anything, it would send a message to me. If I was in charge of Forest or Brighton and Manchester United prioritise one of my players, you're just hiking up the price, aren't you? I think United did quite well with Lamans, and they did quite well with Sesko last season, where they didn't say we're going to all out for this player. They were linked to other players as well, and they got a good deal for these players. But I appreciate your view, Chris. I think this one is I'd be putting Believer as like a mid-table signing at the moment. There's lots of other players that are more interesting, and I think Believer's just kind of there in the background as well. I say Scott's half sister does play. It's yeah, I did say that and think there's a few, isn't there, that when you're looking at some of the players, like whether it's Baliba, whether it's I think Buwadi as well, because there's links between some players like Yoro joined us from Lille, and looking at some of the players that come through Lille, then there's is factors, isn't there? That I know saying that the fact his half sister plays for a ladies team. One of the things that is a factor as well is Christopher Vivell, that he has a very good relationship with different players. If you think about the Benjamin Sesko situation, Manchester United went head to head with Newcastle to try and get Sesko, and I think Vivell was the difference. That Newcastle offered more money, Newcastle offered Leipzig a higher transfer fee. Newcastle could offer Benjamin Sesko Champions League football in a team that was playing well, that finished high up in the Premier League. And Manchester United, effectively, we had no, we offered less money, we offered less salary. We were a team that finished 15th, but we did have Christopher Vivell, good relationship, and that kind of for me that I think that helped a lot. We probably got a little bit lucky in that regard. That in the past, Manchester United would have probably had to throw money at the situation. So there are a few factors. I think regarding all these targets, the positive's got to be that Manchester United are offering Champions League football. We're offering the fact that we finish, we haven't finished yet, but if we're going to finish third or fourth, we're going to probably finish above some big teams like Chelsea, Liverpool, and we're not going to finish too far away from teams like Manchester City, who, you look at them as being the benchmark of the Premier League the last few years. And based on this, that the negotiation process has got to be way easier. So, if I did see a story this morning, just to back up this as well, I saw a story that said Cole, was it Rogers at Aston Villa? He's looking at Manchester United in terms of like now whether Manchester United want to get Rogers or not, I don't know. But Rogers, there's a statement out there saying that he would join or be interested in joining if Manchester United can offer Champions League football. And my first thought was like, okay, this is kind of the situation we didn't have a year ago. Because a year ago we looked at it and it's like we couldn't offer Champions League football. It meant that if it, no, it's annoying if a player prioritizes that, but you have to be realistic. Some players will have that as a factor. And it used to be that Manchester United, because we qualified for the Champions League every single season, it wasn't a factor. Whereas now, there's going to possibly be a big team missing out. So Chelsea, if they miss out on Champions League football, which looks likely, things are going quite badly for them. Maybe that impacts on the transfer situation. They've got a lot of players already. There's no guarantee of first team football. If they haven't got Champions League football, it's going to be help Manchester United definitely. And in terms of salary, I don't think Chelsea pay big salaries. They seem to be trying to run in a weird way where they look for younger players and they look to try and make profit on each signing. It's a tricky one. Jim said some people think Belieber is already a done deal for the summer. I don't know. I think with Belieber, it seems like there's some players that behind the scenes you don't hear much news about, and I think United are trying to not make reactionary decisions. And there's loads of players throughout time that have good seasons, bad seasons. I think some of the things that Belieber does well, he will always do well. And I think in terms of it is a bit of a tricky situation, isn't it? When you're looking at a player, the younger you go, there's almost like less evidence, isn't there, in terms of like what have they achieved in their career. If you look at Diamonde as an extreme example, or Buwadi as an extreme example, they've I'm not going to say they haven't achieved anything, but they've only played for like a season or two, so there's not a lot they could have achieved. So you have to go a lot on potential. And I think with this, that Manchester United, looking at the skill set Believers got, taking it out of Brighton, and imagining, I suppose with this one, you've got to assume that with good coaching and better coaches around the club, something which we're seeing at Manchester United over the last sort of 12 months. or say maybe 6 months, with better coaches, what is the potential that Belieber's got? And I think they still see that as something that they can work with. I mean, I think the most difficult thing regarding this is that because it's at Brighton, and Brighton tend to want prices that are transfer fees that are too high, that might be a limiting factor. I think ultimately Brighton might be a bit too greedy, and if Belieber costs the same amount of money as some of the top targets on this list, I think that might be why Belieber doesn't move to Manchester United. I think Manchester United are interested, and I don't think it's a done deal by any means. But I think that Brighton might just be holding out for too much money. If that happens, then Manchester United aren't going to be held to ransom and overpay like we used to. That's why I think that someone like Angela Stiller, who is pretty mobile as well, he might be somebody that Manchester United go for instead because they just don't want to overpay. I mean, the story last season was Manchester United were trying to negotiate quite hard with Mbeumo, and they were looking at the targets. I think Semenyo was like a different target, but in the end, Semenyo was probably going to cost a little bit more, but they did have this idea that they wanted to pay a certain value. It's a bit frustrating at the time, but in the long term, it does make sense. Like if Manchester United have a certain cap on how much they're going to spend, like we didn't want to match Brighton's valuation last summer, which I think is very key, and it does mean that this summer that Brighton can't expect to get that sort of price because they know Man United aren't going to spend that. So maybe we can negotiate, maybe we can get a good deal. So I think with all these transfers, the thing that at the moment, like I would prioritize Anderson. I think Wharton's very good. I think Tonali is up there as well, but a lot of it depends on price. If you put a lower price tag on Belieber, and if Angela Stiller is say like 40 to 50 million euros or maybe 50 million pounds, and you look at that in comparison, then you might kind of reorder the list. I think when we look at like I see this picture of Cole Palmer, and I just think at the moment, like Chelsea's valuation of Cole Palmer makes it a transfer where I just think there's no way Manchester United should be looking at Cole Palmer because the price is ridiculous. And you start looking at the transfers and think, actually, in terms of this, you've got Angela Stiller looks like a very good deal. Morgan Rogers looks like he might be too expensive based on Aston Villa's valuation. But again, if that comes down, you could see him being a good signing. Bruno Guimaraes would be insane money as well. But I think there's options on that list where you think, depending on the price, they could be actually quite good deals. But I did see a comment actually saying that Rob saying I think Stiller would boss on midfield. I think in terms of like if you're trying to guess, and it's quite difficult, isn't it? When there's so many different I know so many different players on the list. If we're trying to guess who Manchester United are going to sign, I think Angela Stiller is someone that because when the stories are talking about Angela Stiller, a lot of it is driven by Vivell, his interest. He rates Stiller very highly, and he's going to be a key factor in deciding which players Manchester United go for. I think the complication regarding Angela Stiller is a lot to do with Stuttgart and a lot to do with his contract there, in which we're seeing this across Europe now. There's a lot of players that some leagues always all have release clauses. The Portuguese league, the Spanish league, they always have release clauses in there, and a lot of players in Germany they've got release clauses, and because some of the release clauses are actually quite low, I think a lot of people assume that now if you meet the release clause, you definitely get the player. I think what generally happens is if Manchester United meet a release clause and the player wants to come, yeah, the deal gets done. But I think what's happening across Europe, there's a few players. I think there's Diamonde was one player, Angela Stiller's another. We saw this happen with Semenyo as well. And what happens is the player gets offered a lucrative new deal. That Wolves did this with Cunha. You give a player a massive pay rise and you put in a higher release clause and you try and get that higher price. So with Diamonde, it looks like Leipzig want to give him a new contract. That contract will then put in a release clause, which is the price that Leipzig want to achieve. At the moment, then they're kind of in they want to make sure like Diamonde's only just started playing like week in week out. He's going to obviously have a few years on his contract. He's going to be on quite a low salary, and Leipzig they're going to want to get a certain price for him. So it makes sense with Angela Stiller. I think the release clause was quite low. And what Stuttgart want to do is they want to get a new contract. It'll give Stiller a big pay rise, and it will put him in line with like a better paid player as well. So it's for Stiller, it kind of guarantees he's going to get a high salary, and for Stuttgart, effectively means they can decide what price they sell him for. So I think United are probably looking at hopefully a deal would be about 50 million euros, but maybe it could be slightly more. But I think with this one, you've got to be realistic. If the price of Stiller gets too high, Manchester United have got other options, and I think that's the strength about the transfer window as it stands. That there's no, I do think, like Rob says, I think Stiller would be a good signing. Anybody that watches the Bundesliga generally says, generally speaks very highly of him, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of positive around him. But the question mark's going to be he's not played in the Premier League, so he might. Now, I'm not going to say he couldn't, but there's always going to be that sort of a little bit of a doubt in some people's minds about how it works in the Premier League. And I think this is going to be why Angela Stiller. There's no way that he could cost the same sort of price as say Tonali, Anderson. It's just not realistic. So if Stuttgart are trying to work out a way of extracting the most amount of money, there's going to be, maybe Manchester United should. I'm not saying we should make an offer, but maybe Manchester United should at least let it be known kind of what is how much should he cost. I think that's the one where it's difficult to guess. It's pretty difficult to put a price tag on some of these players. I think one thing that we've seen is that the amount of money that Verts went for was crazy, and I think that these sort of the prices, it's not realistic. You don't need to spend 100+ million on these players. That there's better value to be had. So I think with Angela Stiller and I suppose like Baliba, Bawadi, Tonali, there's so many players to choose from. It's almost like it's a buyer's market at the moment where if the price for some of these players is too high, or if Anderson, Wharton, if they choose to go to different clubs, Manchester United have got literally four or five other options. So it doesn't feel too stressful, I don't think. Welcome to the chat, Ryan. So, so another God. I think with this one, it is difficult, isn't it? That with Belieber, my kind of view on him has been maybe last summer we're looking at Belieber as being a really mobile, a really good option, and I think what it's shown is that you know all these players are probably like a few months away from dropping down massively in value, and I just look at it and think, well, if there is an injury issue, if there is an injury issue, it does explain things a little bit, and it's kind of a mitigating circumstances. But if there's an injury issue with Belieber that's made his performances drop off, I'm kind of walking away anyway, thinking I don't want to sign a player that's been carrying an injury all season at that age. That's not sensible. So it's kind of like a lose lose for Brighton. If you're forcing a player to play with an injury to try and put him in the spotlight, it's just a stupid thing to do. And if he's not injured and he's just putting in poor performances, then again, it's not worth signing him for big money. So it is tricky. Blas says, why are we still linked with Edison? Is this 2024? Um, a lot of this Edison stuff, a lot of this Edison stuff, I do think with Edison that a lot of it is coming from Edison himself. And at the time, we talked about this last year. Edison was pushing out stories saying that he wanted to play in the Premier League. We saw Atalanta putting in a very high price tag on Edison, and there was a little bit of interest from Manchester United, but the price they wanted was really high. And I just thought at the age Edison is, there's no doubt he's decent, but I think the age he's getting at now, then I don't know. I think there's better options. Like United can get options that are probably 5 years younger than Edison, and it's a tricky one. Ollie's saying, yeah, Edison rumors due to Atlanta trying to get a load of cash. And I think that's the truth of it. That most of the Edison rumors, when you look into it, and we looked into it last year, we know Edison's decent, but a lot of the rumors regarding Edison to Manchester United were from Edison himself. The stories being pushed out was that Edison wants to join a Premier League team, and that Manchester United and Manchester City were going to somehow, yeah, somehow we're going to be fighting for his signature. I think that's not realistic and wasn't the reality. And in the end, I think Atlanta, they probably could have got a deal done if they hadn't pushed the price up. But the price was going up beyond 50 million, and I think there's no way that United and Man City were going to look at paying that sort of money for a player that. No, he's a good player, but I don't think he was going to be better than a lot of players we already see in the Premier League. And so apparently linked to midfielders in La Liga. Just I think with a lot of this, I did see there's it's quite vague. I'll put the story up, but it's quite vague regarding this is the story about Spanish midfielders. I think the United Stand was running stories about this, looking at Agume, but we've seen like various stories over the last probably couple of months regarding Atletico Madrid. We know that they bought and sold players recently in January, and I think a lot of it was also regarding Manchester United, Marcus Rashford going to Barcelona. Was there a chance of some swap deal for a midfield player there? And I think that there's the what this says to me is that Manchester United have been linked to a lot of midfielders in La Liga, but I think these are almost like not I don't want to say backup options, but I think they're options that Manchester United are just doing their due diligence, and it's going to be if Manchester United don't get a Premier League signing, I think they'll be looking around different leagues, and that's why they're going to be looking at in terms of the players on the screen, and also Angela Stiller. That's I think Angela Stiller is the top one that's not a Premier League signing that is going to be more likely. I think a lot of fans will be looking at some other stories regarding, and maybe it's more fan driven than anything. When you look at players like Boadi, he's obviously good. He's obviously a highly rated player, but again, are Manchester United going to want to spend quite big money on that? I think when you look at this list, the one thing that stands out, apart from the fact that they're mainly midfield players, is that if you look at it, you've got Premier League, like Believer Premier League, Tonali Premier League, Skelly, Palmer, most Premier League teams. And then it does seem to be that maybe because of Babel, there's a lot of interest in not just one, but quite a few players that play for Leipzig that he does know well. I think David Raum is one that's been on the radar of a few fans for a few years. He's a good left back, very pacey, and you can see him being linked, Diamonde being linked. And it does seem to be that if you want to fix Manchester United, that we're not going to fix all the issues in one summer. But it looks like at the moment the strategy seems to be looking at the left side of United. But if you look at the right, okay, we've got options on the right with various attacking players. And I think we're looking at the moment we're looking at midfield, and I think that most of the targets are midfield, but most of the targets are Premier League. So in terms of this, it doesn't feel like particularly like in terms of scouting and research. I mean, I could have done this because I watch all these players, and I could tell you that Anderson, Wharton, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes are some of the best midfielders in the Premier League. So it does seem to be that in terms of like the main obvious signings, they're going to be players we know and know pretty well. And in terms of like, I suppose with this feels a little bit like squad depth, and it feels a little bit like I don't know. Is there players in La Liga you think Manchester United would really be going for? 'Cause I have seen numerous stories really looking at players in the La Liga, players playing for, say, Barcelona, Real Madrid. I don't see Real Madrid losing some of those players. I know like Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Val, but all these players seem to be at some point very, very tenuously linked to Manchester United. I don't really believe the stories. I don't really believe the rumours. I just look at it and think it's one of these stories where I don't see Real Madrid selling these players without them costing a huge amount of money. And also, the salary demand for these players will be astronomical, particularly as a lot of the players Real Madrid sign, they get on free transfers, they put them on huge salaries. Manchester United aren't going to be spending insane amounts of money. And some of these other players, I think at the moment, a lot of these players are probably going to be the ones that are interesting, but they might not be the best signing in terms of trying to hit the ground running. Like Manchester United, there has been a lot of stories recently. I checked over the last couple of days actually, and a lot of stories where they were talking about the manager situation or head coach situation, comparing it to the transfer window. A lot of it was in terms of like the who's going to be head coach. For fans, it's obviously quite a big issue. You look at this and go, right, should we keep Carrick or should we replace him? And I think that Manchester United, the people behind the scenes, the directors, etc., have said that they feel that getting the transfers wrong would be a bigger problem than getting a head coach situation wrong. So if Manchester United keep Carrick and it is and it's a disaster, for example, worst case scenario, they can just replace Carrick, and it wouldn't be ideal, but it would be something that United have had to done. They've done it over the last couple of years anyway. But if you look at Manchester United getting the transfers wrong, if you get a transfer wrong and you start spending the sort of money that's going to be required to get these players. So, for example, if you look at if Manchester United spend, I don't know, how much would Cole Palmer cost? If Manchester United bought Cole Palmer, spent crazy amounts of money, and it doesn't work, it's not just a problem for 6 months. It's a problem for like years, isn't it? It's a problem, and I think getting transfers wrong is this is the reason why it's going to be, it might sound a bit boring, but Manchester United will probably go for players that play in the Premier League as a priority in the short term. Because if you drop Anderson into Manchester United's team or you drop Tonali, I think most people like watching today, most people will say, right, you're going to have an expectation of how they play. And I don't think you'll be too far wrong. That there's pretty much as a guarantee you can have that yeah, if Manchester United signed Anderson, he would be a good player. It wouldn't be a problem, would it? If Manchester United signed Tonali, he's a good player. Like I don't think anyone would be concerned about that. If Manchester United dropped in, I don't know, I suppose a player that's played predominantly in La Liga, looked quite good in a mid-table team. I don't know. I just remember the Europa League when that Williams was played against Manchester United, did absolutely nothing. And you look at it and think it's difficult, isn't it? The fact that you've got to get these transfers right, and maybe it's a good thing, but I think we've seen actually, if you look at some of the players that we've seen signed for other teams in the past, if you were looking at maybe, I saw something saying that Chris says, I don't want a manager from another league where they have only one good team. Yeah, I think there's some leagues around around Europe where, say, if you're manager of Bayern Munich, what's the competition like really what and if you're manager of Sporting Lisbon, for example, and you're winning the league, you don't have the depth in the Premier League. It's difficult. It's a different situation. Is there any league around Europe at the moment that is as competitive as the Premier League, that where the Arsenal were expected to win the title, they got outplayed by Bournemouth at home? Is that something that happens in other leagues? Because I look around Europe and think the only league where there seems to be maybe more depth, I would say, is maybe in Italy. There might be less standout teams, but I think that in Italy we've just seen the top teams just drop off a level. I think most of the teams in Europe, you can probably pick out, say in Spain, Germany, France, you can pick out two teams that maybe are levels above most of the competition. And I think you can't do that in the Premier League. And that's probably the difficulty, that if a manager comes in from a situation where you've only got four difficult games a year to suddenly having like 35 difficult games a year with like one or two easy ones, and that's about it. And I think United have found out this season we haven't really had any easy games. Even Arsenal have been struggling to beat teams in the bottom three. I think it's just a different factor, isn't it? It is a different one. I'm clearly saying I don't want any Spurs players. I don't trust their mentality. I say I don't think it's even a flash in the pan, Cody. I think Spurs were dreadful last season. They're dreadful this season, and I don't know if I would trust any Spurs players, because a lot of the Spurs players, some of the bigger players in that team, seem to be happy for the team to get relegated so they can just disappear. Like people talking about Van der Ven, I see Van der Ven making mistakes every week, and Spurs being dreadful. I wouldn't be looking at him for big money. And I think people talk about Xavi Simons, another player that looks good, but what does he actually do? Like how many no, he looks good on the ball, but technically it's not enough. Like he needs to be a better, more effective player. So I would say this one, I kind of I would say this, if you watch the Premier League, so if you hadn't watched any of the season, you would look at West Ham and look at Spurs and think, okay, similar teams, similar amount of wins, similar amount of points. I just from watching the Premier League, I can't understand how West Ham was so poor in the first 15 games because since then, okay, they haven't got loads of wins, but they're such a difficult team to play against. Whereas Spurs capitulate as soon as things go wrong. I think also, I think it's like Paqueta got sold from West Ham in the summer. Doesn't seem to have affected them. I said this about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I thought West Ham were the most likely to get out of it because if you look at the teams around the bottom of the league, West Ham, you had Paqueta, you got Fernandez, you got Bowen, who, as somebody said in the comments, rightly so, Bowen's never going to leave. Like Bowen's never going to leave West Ham, and he's just one of those players that wants to stay there. I think someone compared him, it might have been Chris, compared him to Letitia and Southampton. Yeah, some players are just never going to leave. But the thing is, when you look down the bottom of the league teams, I would look at Wolves and go, actually, Wolves have got one or two good players, maybe less so now, but they got one or two players you would maybe buy. West Ham definitely have a few. I just don't see players in this team that maybe if a team is playing a lot better, you get better performances out of those players. But when things get difficult, the Spurs players just fold, and I would not be wanting those. I mean, I said this about 2 months ago. I thought Spurs were the most likely to go down, but at the moment, I think that they probably still will be. It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? But I would say this: 20 plus years ago, West Ham got relegated. They had a better team than Spurs, so I would not be surprised if Spurs go down. Okay, let's go for a few of the comments. Frankie De Jong, how old's Frankie De Jong now? That I mean, I remember joking a couple of years ago saying that we were going to be linked to Frankie De Jong until he retired, and so not Frankie De Jong, Gareth Bale, and then when Gareth Bale retired, yeah, that's when it stopped. Chris saying, yeah, leagues don't have Brighton, Bournemouth, and even like West Ham, like that. I think this is why when we're looking at the situation, then in terms of managers, just the head coach, just to quickly cover this as well, saying that the depth and the difficulty of the league. Do you remember Ragnick came in, and I think the first game we played was Crystal Palace, and they probably just looked at the league table and thought Crystal Palace easy game, but there isn't really such a thing as easy games in the Premier League, apart from maybe Wolves at the start of the season. That was quite an easy game, and maybe Burnley had been. I say Burnley, they haven't been the easiest game. We beat them 4-3. And we drew 2-2. But they've been a team you can definitely score against. If you play well, you should beat them. But no, can you imagine like with Nagelsmann? I know like he did well in Germany, but he wasn't a mid-table team. And I think the difficulty is going to be that Ralph Ragnick, I would say possibly Eric Ten Hag to some extent, although Eric Ten Hag seemed to get very good results in the first year in the Premier League. But definitely Ruben Amorim. I think Ruben Amorim was just surprised the fact that every single game was going to be difficult. And it's if you're in the Portuguese league, some of the teams in the table and near the bottom of some of these leagues are going to be a massive drop off. So it's going to be like the Premier League is different to the Portuguese league. The Portuguese league has four or five good teams, and the rest of the teams are they're nowhere. It's probably Championship or lower. They're not going to be remotely close to the top teams. And I think with the Premier League that if Manchester United, if we play badly, we lose to Brighton, we lose to Bournemouth, we lose to like Brentford as well. And the same with Arsenal. Arsenal haven't dropped off loads, but it's enough to actually start dropping points, and that's why it's making the league look a little bit more interesting than it was. So Ragnick was hired as very knowledgeable, but the team had issues. Ragnick made them worse. But the thing is, I will say Ralph Ragnick was he was a sporting director and he wasn't a manager. Like can't remember if he'd been a manager in the past, but he was nowhere near up to the job, was he? I think he had no idea what to do, and I think it's one of these things where the one thing I would say positive about Nagelsmann is he is someone that is a bit more flexible, and so with Ragnick, with Eric Ten Hag, with Ruben Amorim, the problem was they had one plan, and if that plan didn't work, they just looked confused and then just carried on with the same plan. The things that are a bit more positive about Nagelsmann is he's not tied to one formation. He is more flexible. He will experiment a bit as well in terms of trying to find the best way. So I'm not going to say anything negative about Nagelsmann, but I don't see I don't see any improvement on Nagelsmann. So, if Nagelsmann joined Manchester United, he would have some obstacles in terms of getting used to how things work at United, getting used to the Premier League, something that Michael Carrick won't have. And I think if United, we're already expecting a lot of upheaval in terms of like, if we look at this, just to go back to the list because it is quite a good indication of potential signings. If Manchester United are going to be buying, say, 2 to 3 midfield players this summer, that effectively our midfield could look very, very different next season. And even though like Anderson's very good, Tonali's very good, Wharton's obviously good as well. All these players are good players, but the fact that you're then going to have to, they're going to have to get used to playing with Bruno Fernandes, with Mainu, with like Dorgu and Buemo, Benjamin Sesko, and all these players we've got already, they're going to have to get used to playing in a different team, different players. So it will take a little bit, even with the best quality signings in the world. And I think it would be, for me, it would be a lot more of a. Now it'd be more difficult if you then replace the head coach as well, that maybe wanted to do something different. So in the same way that when Liverpool replaced their manager and they brought in Slot. The team was actually the same. If you remember, Slot came into Liverpool. The team didn't change. Liverpool had a transfer window. They didn't sign anybody, and Slot got great results. Like they bought nobody, and then as soon as you actually bring different players in, like Isak, Frimpong, Verts, then trying to integrate those into the team, like Slot's had a disaster really in comparison. And I think with Manchester United, we're going to have to bring in a lot of new players because like Casemiro is leaving. We didn't replace a lot of players that left last season. You got Rashford going, needs to be replaced. You got like there's no replacement for Sancho and Garnacho, and we've got to do all these replacements. If you then replace the head coach as well, I think it's just going to make it less likely to be successful in the short term. Like I think Carrick is at least. I think most people, if you're looking at Carrick, if you think Carrick's a bit of a gamble, then I think you have to acknowledge that the worst performances under Michael Carrick have been narrow defeats and disappointing draws. That's kind of the worst we've seen from Carrick so far. It's been games where we've lost 2-1 or lost 1-0, or games where we've drawn like 2-2 and haven't picked up a win. This is kind of the low point for Carrick. The high point has been he's beaten Arsenal, he's beaten Manchester City, and he's got good results in a lot of games. So I would look at it thinking, we're not seeing some of the results we saw under Eric Ten Hag and Ruben Amorim. We're not seeing Manchester United lose 3 or 4-0. We're not seeing Manchester United ship 6 or 7 goals. We're just seeing disappointing performances. So if Manchester United bring in a few new signings and keep Michael Carrick, I think worst case scenario is we draw. No, worst case scenario for me is we draw games we think, okay, maybe we should have won, or we start getting some narrow defeats. I don't see Manchester United getting run through. I don't see Manchester United getting very badly beaten. I think his base level in terms of like what's the lowest performance you're going to get under Michael Carrick, I think is pretty high. I think there's definitely a standard there you're going to get, and whether it's exciting football is no guarantee. But Manchester United aren't losing 3 or 4-0. Like we're not getting badly beaten. So I think he's got a lot of the basics quite right, and that's one positive. Yeah, I tend to not mention it too much, Ollie, but if we could have done it 2 months earlier, I think it could have been a definite improvement. Definite improvement. Welcome, Cake. Good to see you, Cake. I was going to actually, I'm going to agree with you and say that in terms of several new players, that Manchester United probably do need more like 7 or 8. I think I do agree with this 100%, and I think the reason is if you look back 2 years ago, Manchester United's last summer we effectively reduced our squad. We had a lot of players leave that maybe they went under the radar because they weren't transfer fees. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but we had, apart from the bomb squad, which was 4 players that were first team players being kind of frozen out, Manchester United also moved on. a number of players that just effectively either they retired or we had Lindelof leave, we had Evans leave, we had I think the midfielder we had leave as well. But we effectively reduced our squad by quite a lot. I think about 10 people left the club and about four people came in. And this season as well, yeah, we're going to be losing Casemiro. We might be selling Agate or Xerxes, and I think these players need to be replaced. But also, we probably do need to get, I'd say, at least like six people in as a minimum. Like you need to replace Casemiro and Agate to start with, and we probably need to replace Collier. That's three midfielders. We definitely need a left, maybe a left back with a left winger, backup striker. Like at least if you consider like one game a week, we don't exactly have a loaded bench, do we? We still have like one or two first team players, and we still have a decent amount of academy players on the bench. That if United want to, and this is the key thing, like whoever's head coach, if Manchester United want to have the same sort of success in the league, and by success I mean like finishing at least in contention for Champions League positions, which I think is what we've done. I think we've been in the mix. So the last couple of months, we've been probably since Carrick came in, Manchester United. I think this is actually still true that we've picked up more points than any other team. So if we beat Leeds tonight, it will definitely be the case. But I think other teams are. Maybe Arsenal are close, but they lost in the weekend. But no team's picked up more points under Carrick. So our trajectory is pretty good. But to try and match this, I think if it's if United had Carrick in charge next season, I don't think there's going to be any problem with maintaining the league form if you get enough players because the extra demand playing Champions League football. Look at Newcastle. Like, okay, I know Newcastle lost. They lost Isak, but they did bring in Wissa. They did bring in Langer. Trying to think, did they lose anybody else? So squad numbers were relatively the same for Newcastle, but the demand was so much higher. They did okay in the Champions League, but the Premier League form did drop off quite a lot. So, Cake, you're right. If Manchester United signed four players in the summer, given that we got a couple of players leaving, I think next season would be a struggle. I'm not saying we need to get quantity over quality, but you can definitely get a few players. You can definitely get a few players of the cheaper price bracket in. That's why I think that Manchester United are looking at say that some of these sort of stories. So when you see Manchester United looking at a number of midfielders in Spain, I think what United are thinking is if we get one from it's a bit like countdown. If you get one from the top, that's going to be a big number in terms of transfer fee. If you're going to get like an Anderson or Wharton, you're going to spend big money. And then if you want to bulk up the squad a little bit, you're going to have to look at, say, Gomez. Even like Gallagher. People were dismissive of Gallagher, but you do need Gallagher's going to be a better option than Collier and probably a better option than Agate. So United do need to have say a good option, rotation options, injury cover, bench options. You do need a bigger squad. And I think that's something that we didn't really have. So let's have a look. Yeah, if people were calling you a fake fan because you didn't rate Ruben Amorim, nobody rated Ruben Amorim. I don't think anybody at the club rated Ruben Amorim. None of the players rated Ruben Amorim. And yeah. Cheers, Ollie. This is the player I forgot. Christian Eriksen. He didn't play loads of games, but yeah, he does. He still needs to be replaced. He hasn't been replaced. Marcus Rashford hasn't been replaced, and all these players. Like I know Garnacho was a bit. Um, yeah, we're happy he's gone. Put it that way. And Sancho and Anthony, it didn't really require good much replacement, but they do still need to be replaced in terms of like trying to get the quality up there. Christian Eriksen was good. I think maybe Christian Eriksen would actually looked a lot better under Michael Carrick. Now our team's playing a lot better. Yeah, this is the positive as well. United are going to go into the situation regarding like these are the good things. Like I know there's a lot to be sorted out, and there's a lot of apprehension among some fans about whether United can do it. The good thing is we're in a lot better position, not just like where we are on the league table. That is a big factor though, but also Manchester United. We're in a better financial position. We're actually in a position where we are going to sell players for significant money in the summer, something we pretty much never do. Like I don't think we sell anybody last summer. I think we loaned people out. We loaned Rashford, we loaned Sancho. I'm just trying to think if any players left. But the Rasmus deal is pretty much a done deal. Marcus Rashford feels like it's pretty close to a done deal. There will be money for Anana wherever he goes. Bindy is gone pretty much, isn't he? That's a little bit of money in. And Casemiro's salary is gone. Sancho's salary is gone. Financially, Manchester United are in a better position. Like if we don't spend money, it's because Manchester United's owners choose not to. But the money is there to spend. I'm entertained says I got told off on channels for calling for Ruben. Yeah, to be honest, I know people that stopped watching Manchester United because of Ruben Amorim. Um, Cake says the bench of ours is poor. Yeah, for me, the difference between Manchester United and Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool is probably like it's not the first 11. It's probably what when you look at the bench. When Liverpool play, you look at the bench, they've got 4 or 5 players that could quite often regularly be starting. And I think Arsenal the same. Arsenal have got a lot more depth recently. Man City's probably the best example where they've got players on the bench that maybe like 5 or 6 players that would all be say like 30, 40 million pound signings. They've got quite a lot of depth, like probably more than anybody. And Manchester United at the moment, we've got very good first team, but once you go to the bench, recently the bench might have maybe Benjamin Sesko. I suppose like what else would we have on there? Mason Mount. Then you start looking at players that a lot of academy players. There isn't a lot there, is there? There has been some times where you can look at it and go, actually, we got Dorgu or we got Cunha plus Sesko, but we've probably got 2 players on the bench where you think can make a difference. A lot of the time, we looked at the bench and you got defensive players. You got Agate, you've got maybe Masraoui or Dallo, and that there isn't a lot to. Now, if the game's not going well, there is usually, and actually we might see that tonight. I think tonight we've got maybe Martinez coming back. I think Dorgu is not back yet, but he's getting closer. I think like training is going okay, and they need to be careful with integrating him back. But I think we're starting to get to a situation where when we play one game a week, we've got a couple of bench options. But when you start looking at 2 games a week, wow, it's a completely different situation. United are going to struggle quite a lot. Um, yeah, Garnacho. So yeah, sometimes there is some positivity in the squad playing twice a week because you do build up a bit more of a rhythm. But the issue is going to be that we're just going to see more injuries. We're going to see more fatigue. Like I don't think most players, if you look at some of the teams like Chelsea, when Chelsea were playing in the Championship, whatever it was, the Conference Cup a year ago or 2 years ago, they had a different team that played on the Thursday. When you start playing that, if you look at Newcastle, for example, that's kind of the best example. I said at the start of the season, we'll finish above Newcastle because I saw Newcastle imploding because they had no, they just didn't buy enough players. They had pretty much one in, one out. They had the same squad and they tried to carry on a Premier League campaign while trying to run the Champions League campaign. The Champions League now is at least 8 to 10 extra matches over other teams in the Premier League. It's a huge amount. And if Manchester United were running a Champions League campaign this season with this squad, we're mid-table. I don't think there's any way we can. We'd have to take a hit somewhere. We'd have to use more academy players in Champions League matches and hope to get by, or the standard would drop in the Premier League. We just don't have the options. So, and if Manchester United don't realise this, there's a big problem. That I do think they must realise to some extent that they know that getting the wage bill down. The only reason you get the wage bill down is to give you the leverage and the option to actually to boot to get more players in. Like lowering the wage bill is not going to help Manchester United achieve anything, but it does mean that you have got the capacity to fit in with the new financial rules and actually spend decent money. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping honestly that if we get like say 4 or 5 very good quality players in, and then get a couple of players that are going to be fringe players, maybe you can get some cheaper players that will be a bit like Dorgu, where they're going to be Yeah, absolutely fine in terms of like coming off the bench. They're going to be fine starting every other game or one in three games. And they're gradually over the next year going to be integrated a bit more. And maybe one or two academy players will get to step up. That's going to be, I think where the extra numbers come from. It's not going to be big money. It's going to be cheaper signings, and it's going to be potentially like some of the academy signings we've made over the last couple of years. Maybe they're going to come to the fore and actually get some minutes. And I think also the Champions League, it is a crazy long competition now, but there will be some games in the group stage where you don't have the best quality opposition, and you might look at that in terms of an option where you can rotate a little bit. So let's go for a few comments. Also, if you're able to share the stream on any socials, there is a link at the top of the channel that has got every social we run as well in terms of like Discord, Facebook. There's a TikTok and social media on Twitter as well. If you're able to follow and get involved there, then it's about building the community. But also, if you're able to share on, say, any platform you use as well, that will help. That will help reconnect with a lot of people that we've kind of missed over the last few weeks. Um, let's go through a few of the comments. I think with this one as well that there's no such thing as a fake fan, is there? If you're a fan of Manchester United, you're a fan of Manchester United. If you disagree with what I'm saying, to be honest, I'd be surprised if everybody agrees anyway. And I've got a list of targets here where if somebody said that their top midfield target was Adam Wharton, that everybody has a different way of looking at what the best option is. And if you say your top targets Bruno Guimaraes or Tonali, they're legitimate good players, aren't they? They're good targets. So yeah, I think with sometimes cake, people want to be right, don't they? And people don't like people disagreeing with them. Who cares? Like if people disagree with you, that fine. It's not a problem. I did a stream last night, and Helgi we deserve better. They were saying after we finished that there's a lot of things they massively disagree about. They massively disagree about, but they just talk about it in a sensible manner, and it's absolutely fine. I think the one thing is, regard the toxic thing about Ruben Amorim is if you blindly backed Ruben Amorim. I did say this to people at the time. I thought Amorim was doing a bad job, and I think he should have been replaced. But if you disagree, just give me a reason. Like, give me something that you think that was going well or you believe in. Just make a credible argument because I couldn't find any myself. I just couldn't find a good reason. Afternoon, Doug. Good to see you, Doug. Hope you're having a good day as well, Doug. Nice seeing the comments. Um, yeah, I'm going to go through a few of the comments as well. I'm going to try and um, I'm going to try and rebuild things as soon as possible. So it's going to be a little bit in terms of like, there's going to be streams. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, get involved, because that's going to be the sign that we're actually really back when we get some new people watching as well. And I would say this, feel free to get any comments or questions in because it does really kind of help. And what we will be doing is, if you saw the stream last night, the call-in show, it's something that we will be trying to do a bit more of. Also, tonight will be one of these streams where we will be talking about the Leeds match. We'll be doing the player rating discussion, but it will be again a panel of people, myself plus a couple of other guests, and it will be about trying to get more people involved. I know that if you were watching a while ago on the last channel, there was definitely like Jules will be hosting a stream as well one evening. I don't think he can do it this week, but he will be bringing back his maybe Tuesday night show, and also I'll be speaking to Kieran as well whether he's able to come back and get back on as well because it's about I think one of the things it is about building up a community where lots of different views, but also maybe a couple of different hosts as well, so people can put out slightly different content as well. But I think that most of the main thing will be the same. That it's going to be Manchester United focused, and it's going to be fan driven, different opinions, etc. But also, I think one thing I'm going to encourage people is that if people come on as guests, it's not about just what views you got. It's just about maybe trying to explain like try and convince me why your views are right. That's the main thing. If you think that Manchester United should sign Carlos Baliba, let me know why you think that's the case. If you want to, if you don't think Anderson's the best option, that's absolutely fine. But I'd be really interested to know why you think that and what's your view. And I think the main one of the things that's interesting as well is if you think Michael Carrick shouldn't get the job, because at the moment I'm kind of of the mind that I quite like what's happening at the moment with the club. I quite like the calmness, the stability that seems to be around at the moment. There seems to be a lack of drama in terms of like press conferences, stories coming out, and I quite like that. I think the focus should be on football, focus should be on results. Then it's kind of like I see an upside in potentially, okay, like Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique. Now maybe there's someone out there that can do a better job, but I think there's a lot of people out there that could definitely undo a lot of good work, that could definitely see us suddenly dropping back down, problems arising. I just see that it's at the moment, it just seems to be like a stable force, doesn't it? It seems that there's a bit of continuity at the moment, that Carrick knows Manchester United inside and out. He's played at the highest level. I know people talk about experience, but Michael Carrick's been in Champions League finals. Michael Carrick's played in the biggest arenas around the world for club and country. He's lifted endless numbers of trophies, and that's something that okay, he's not. He's been around some of the best managers, the best manager in the world that we know, and Alex Ferguson. He's been immersed in that at the highest level. So when people talk about experience, okay, managerial experience, of course he's not going to get that because he's not been manager long enough. But in terms of like knowledge about around the game, he's right up there, and he's also put together quite a good background staff that uh, has improved a lot of things. So I don't know, it's not really a problem. Big up to you, Chris. Yeah, no, I think around this, the one thing I've changed a little bit is I've never used like I never used TikTok. The Discord server and the Facebook group are quite new, so I've just tried to like put things in on a slightly different no, a slightly different way. If anything, actually, in a weird way, I quite like the new name because it's got my new Twitter handle is actually quite good. I was surprised it was available, so it was yeah, it was a relief that I could actually start again. To be honest. Apparently, Lich is in the squad tonight. Yeah, I saw that. I hope he's not going to. I would say this. I quite like the idea that we have someone with experience to play along. This is a difficult one, isn't it? About what do Manchester United do tonight? Is that what do people think regarding a starting 11? We're going to play against Leeds. The only thing think of when we play against Leeds, if we were playing against any other team in the Premier League, I would probably be looking at saying like Yoro and Aiden Hetman can start, but Leeds are going to be the intensity is going to be higher. You've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who has been playing very well for Leeds. He's going to be a massive problem if we got just young defenders in there. And I was just thinking that there is positives about having Martinez start if if he is able to start. There is also, I think Michael Carrick said in his press conference that he's looking at a longer term view as well, which I think is sensible. That if Martinez comes back a bit too soon, obviously we still got some important games to come, and it might be that that's not the most sensible approach. I mean, you'd look at it and say, Eindhoven and Yoro, there is some positives that if they make mistakes, you can have experience around them in terms of like, at least our goalkeeper's playing well. We've got experienced left back and right back that have been in the team all year as well. And you would say that with Yoro, you've got the recovery situation, you've got the physicality of Heaven. I don't mind it, but I'd be more comfortable. It's a bit of a shame that this is one of the games where it would have been really good to have Maguire available because you got that experience for these sort of games. But I don't mind if Martinez starts if he's definitely fit. I think that's the difficulty. If he's definitely fit, if he's not, I think it's a bit of it's a bit of a risk situation. I'll say, yeah. Luckily, I suppose I was away. I was away for about a week. Not actually at home anyway, so I couldn't do it. But also, there's been no football, is there? I can't remember the last. I don't think I've actually missed any games in a weird way. It's really bizarre. It's really weird actually because I was having a conversation last night after our stream, and I was just saying I don't think I actually missed any matches. I think Manchester United's last match was Bournemouth. I think we covered that one. And I don't think I think since then there's been no games. Like this is the longest I think Manchester United have been about playing ever, and it is ridiculous. But this is one of the games where I think if you're a Manchester United fan, Leeds is the game you look out for as well. 3-2 United. I think with this one it's difficult, isn't it? Let me just quickly check the league table because I was of the mindset that based on like results over the weekend that we've seen. Did Aston Villa play? I can't remember what happened with some of the results, but it looks like Manchester United. If we get a win tonight, then we're like Newcastle lose, Aston Villa draw. Okay, so Aston Villa drop points. We see Chelsea lose very badly at home. We see like Arsenal lose, but that's irrelevant. But who else picks up points? No one picks up points, do they? Liverpool win, but that's about it. And if Manchester United win at the moment, as it stands, where are we in the league table? So Chelsea got 48 points, Manchester United 45. If we win, we go 10 points ahead of Chelsea with 6 games to go. So like, there's no way Chelsea are catching up. And we go, yeah, we're potentially at the moment. We're level on points of Aston Villa, but we've got a game in hand. We'd go 3 points above Villa. It's just looking like so. After we do play Liverpool, which I guess that's one game where we get any points from that. But no, the rest of the season we've got Forest, Brighton, Sunderland. No, we should be picking up a couple of wins out of that anyway. But no, if Man United win tonight, I think it's almost like a done deal. What Champions League football? If it goes down to the fifth position, if we're 10 points ahead of Chelsea, it's going to happen, isn't it? Like Chelsea have got who have they got to play? Yeah, Chelsea got to play Liverpool. Actually, that could be key. Chelsea playing Liverpool means that they're going to take points off each other, and apart from that, I guess Chelsea's still in Europe. I've not really been following that, but no, I think in terms of this, like if United win, I think Champions League football is ours. If Manchester United draw, I don't think it's a big drama. I think it's one of those games where I'll be disappointed, but the key thing is that we're in a great position. We probably need like a couple more wins, and that's it. That's Champions League football locked up. Let's have a look. Well, I'll go for a few comments before I wrap up. But tonight will be a 10 p.m. start. If you guys are around, then we will be doing a match review. Probably do the player rating things as well. So let's go through a few of the comments. Yeah, Zoe Biscuit Barrel. Yeah, I should have read the comments because you told me what I was just looking for. Yeah, if we win, we're 10 points, 10 points clear of Chelsea. Like 10 points with what 6 games to go. Absolutely crazy. Say Villa got City. There's just a lot of teams playing each other, isn't there? Yeah, for people that if you're able to share the stream, that would be massively appreciated. I don't know if anyone new subscribed today. I think we're still on 439. But if you're watching and you're new, please get involved in the community. Let's try and hit 450 today if possible with tonight. But I think it's gonna take a little bit of time, but we will get back there. I think one thing I was trying to do is that I know there's lots of different lots of little stories out there at the moment. What I might try and do is maybe one of the best things. If people got some questions, I can go a little bit longer. I mean, it's all about. I think at the moment, I don't normally plan on streaming as long as I did yesterday, but because there was other people talking, it made it a bit easier. I could let them talk a little bit. 'Cause it does, after about an hour, it does start. My voice starts getting a bit a bit tired. But if you got some comments and questions, then I'm just trying to work out what is the best story. I did see this. I'll just get your views on it because I know Jules was a big fan of Lewis Hall. Then this is one where potentially it is highly rated by a lot of clubs, a lot of fans actually as well. And would this be a good replacement for Luke Shaw? I mean, would it be? It might be that it's one of these signings that's maybe too expensive for Manchester United to try and do at this point in time. But there are a few stories regarding Newcastle as well. That keeping a track on Newcastle, they do have a situation where if Newcastle want to spend, they have to sell. So it might be that the same way that Newcastle kind of, if you think about it, Newcastle. had to sell Elliot Anderson because they needed to raise a bit of money. They ended up selling Isak. I don't think they've actually bought players in that were as good. So Anderson was one that he was quite highly rated by a few people before Newcastle sold him. Newcastle didn't really want to sell him, but it's a little bit like the situation regarding Manchester United when we had PK. We didn't really use him. We had Vidic and Ferdinand, and it was not the right timing possibly. And with Anderson, it seems like Newcastle they just had depth and strength in midfield, didn't they? They had a very good midfield. Anderson was there as like a younger player coming through. He wasn't going to take Bruno Guimaraes' place. He wasn't going to be taking Tonali's place, and they sold him for what 35 million, which is starting to look very very cheap. I think we might see a situation where um, Nottingham Forest have got lucky. Potentially, they're going to stay in the Premier League. Potentially they're going to be able to massively cash in on Anderson. That will give them enough money to they sold Elanga for huge money, didn't they? So Forest should be able to rebuild a little bit. And the Anderson deal, if they buy him for 35 million, sell him for I don't know how much he's going to cost in the end, but if he costs double what they bought him for, it's quite a nice profit, and they could do. Yeah, I think that maybe they got lucky that they got him for that sort of price. Also, it's a shame Man United didn't go for him, and that they could be getting some quite a good deal there. I did say score prediction with Leeds. It's really difficult, isn't it? Do you know what, with Leeds? When I was talking about this match last night, then one of the people that joined the stream, say about halfway on last night, JR, he's a Manchester United season ticket holder, and he was saying that he's watched Leeds quite a lot. They're very compact. They're very difficult to play through. It's one of these games where I think Leeds don't need to win the game, really, do they? Leeds need to keep picking up points because at the moment, Spurs aren't getting any wins. So for Leeds, it would probably be a good result now that let's have a look at the league table. Because of the situation as it is, I think if Leeds got a draw, they'd probably take that. Leeds got 33 points at the moment. So they've got a game in hand over Forest, West Ham, Spurs. If they get another point, that puts them 4 points ahead of Spurs with 6 games to go, which is not considering Spurs have picked up 1 point in 6 games. That's not bad. I mean, Leeds are picking up. If you look at Leeds' last 6 games as well, they got 4 draws, couple of defeats, and even like Forest, they're mainly picking up draws, mainly just keeping the points ticking over. And what all we've seen really is that Spurs have, I can't remember the last time Spurs got a win. They've only got 7 all season. Spurs are just dropping down by just not picking up any points at all. And I think gradually Spurs' goal difference is getting worse. We're seeing, if anything, of like between 18th in the league and 15th in the league. I'm actually surprised Newcastle are still that low. But Leeds, Forest, and West Ham keep picking up points. West Ham are the only team that look like they're getting many wins. And I guess actually the next few games, West Ham have got Crystal Palace, Everton, Brentford. If they get 1 or 2 wins there, I think they might be safe. Let me just check Spurs. Spurs have got Brighton. They got Wolves next. If Spurs can't beat Wolves, they've got a serious issue because after that they've got Villa and they've got Leeds, and that might be tricky. But I think Leeds' next few games, they've got Manchester United, then Leeds' next game is against Wolves, and that's only 5 days later. So they have got some injury issues. They're going to go to Old Trafford, then it's back to Ellen Road for Wolves on the weekend. If I was Leeds, I would be looking at that Wolves game as like a target. You've got to win that game. After that, they've got Bournemouth 4 days later. They've got Chelsea in the FA Cup after that. They've got games coming quite quickly, but they do have Burnley to play as well at home, which I think, Burnley at home, Wolves at home, Leeds have actually got a favourable fixture list. Manchester United away, I think that's one game where Leeds will be a massive problem because of the rivalry between the teams. I would be um, I'd be surprised if like Leeds are not going to be easy to play against, and I wouldn't be expecting Man United to blow them away. So I don't know. I want to predict a win, but I think this might be one of those games where it's like if the first 10 minutes go like it has done with some games where Manchester United start off strong, if Leeds are not on it, I could see Manchester United getting a 3-1 win. But I think in reality, it might be very difficult. And maybe like a 2-1 United. I think it's going to be a tricky match. But the thing that's difficult as well is I don't know what the availability of certain centre backs is. I don't know. I Leeds got players missing, but Leeds have been in a fight all season, haven't they? They've been a really difficult team to play against. So I don't think Manchester United are going to get much change out of Leeds because also someone in the comments, it might have been Chris, said that Leeds tend to like step it up. No, a lot of teams tend to step it up against Manchester United. Leeds definitely. Do you remember when Man United played Leeds just before Kevin Keegan had his meltdown? We battered Leeds for like I think 90 minutes and got the win with like about 5 minutes to go. And then Leeds would get in a relegation fight at the time. They will definitely do the same thing. It's a bit like Man United when we were a mid-table team and Liverpool were winning the league. We used to step it up and cause them problems. So I'm going to say 2-1 United. I would love a clean sheet, but I think that United we do give up a decent amount of goals. We haven't been really shutting teams out. So I'll say 2-1 to United. I've got confidence that Man United are set up to score goals. I just don't have much confidence in keeping clean sheets. Also, yeah, Leeds are a tricky team, aren't they, to play against? So I will stay live for like another 5 minutes to like 2:30. I think that will be a cut off point. Cheers, Chris. Appreciate you getting involved, Chris. Thanks for supporting the channel. And so Leeds are just focused on the Wolves game. Yes, Spurs last won what November, December. I remember seeing like people talking about it, saying that what was it? Yeah, they haven't got a win all year, had they? And we're now in April, and they're on like their fourth manager, aren't they? Is it fourth or third? There's like you look at the league table and think that all the managers that Spurs are going through, if anything, they're getting worse. So I don't know. I suppose it was it Thomas Frank, Tudor. Yeah, no, they're going for a few managers, but it's looking like a disaster at the moment, isn't it? But I was saying confident of a 3-1 win. Yeah, I think if they get if we could score a few goals, I think it would be decent. Okay, let's have a look at the Newcastle rumour. I did see this. According to a few people, because of like the agent involved, then they do feel that maybe this might be more likely than people think. So I don't know myself, but people are saying that this might be because of Mendes being involved. It might be something that does happen because it might be something. Yeah, it might be that there's a reason for it. So let's see. I'll put this on screen actually. Let me just take a screenshot of this one. But this is probably okay, interesting. So there's a Morgan Rogers story that Ryan sent me. I can't remember when you sent me this, but during the stream. I'll just put this on screen just as another talking point. So let's just put that there. But it does seem to be that with this, there's a few targets, and I don't know whether this is like the main target or whether it's something that's going to happen. I think the price is definitely a concern. So let me just put this Morgan Rogers story on the screen. And it seems that Manchester United have, to be honest, I'm not sure whether Manchester United will prioritise this signing or whether this is just something that they want to find out the price. So in terms of Man United's left-sided targets, attacking players, then apparently they have approached Aston Villa. And I think what they want to do is find out how much it's going to cost, what the price is going to be. Rodgers, the good news is if Manchester United do want to get Rodgers, he is keen to join Manchester United. Apparently, it does hinge on Champions League football, but I don't think that's going to be a problem based on what we're seeing in at the moment. So maybe that would be a good. I think that this one is one where it might come down to like I do quite like Ndiaye when you look at Everton as well. Ndiaye is quite a good player, but it does seem to be that Manchester United are looking at Rodgers. I think there's a reason why they like Rodgers, and it might be that it's almost like proven goal scoring. And this season, he is getting a decent amount of goals. He is a goal threat, great striker of the ball. Unfortunately, we saw that firsthand when he scored a winner against us. But no, it's some in terms of like goal scoring attacking players, he does like tick a lot of boxes. He's doing well in the Premier League. He would be quite expensive, but it would be a situation where I think Manchester United will be looking at a certain price. It also gives us a bit more depth as well in terms of like experience as well. And if we've got to play a lot of games, I think that the only issue I've got with this one is it might be a lot of money, and I might, considering we've got other players that could play there, I think it does give us an extra option. It does mean that we can move other players around, but it would be quite expensive. It does seem to be that Man United are quite determined to go for this sort of player. They look at Diamonde as well, who might end up being cheaper, but again, it might be more of a player that develops over the next couple of years. I would say this is an interesting one because United clearly wanted Semenyo, different different player for sure, but I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 with this one. I think he's a good player, but I think there's other issues that for me it's not the priority, but I wouldn't complain. He's obviously a good player. Um, Beatrice de Bassis said, would Rodgers move considering both teams will be in the Champions League? I would say club trajectory, you'd look at it and saying, Aston Villa don't have the budget Manchester United have in terms of how much they can spend, the club turnover. So it would be a big pay rise for a start, wouldn't it? Also, if you consider that this year in time, Aston Villa are in the Premier League, the same way that Newcastle were in the Champions League, Aston Villa are in the Champions League. But if you think about it, with the amount of money, if Manchester United start rebuilding properly, given the size of the clubs, it's a bigger club, isn't it? I think he would consider the move, considering Aston Villa might be in a situation where they need to sell to buy and to significantly invest as well. The thing is though, if Aston Villa want to try and maintain their position, it's kind of tricky, isn't it? They need to get Champions League football. The fact that Aston Villa have stayed in as high up the table as they have and had a decent run in the Champions League, I think is quite impressive. It is difficult to try and do a European campaign and do the Premier League, so it's tricky. But I think with this one, I'd say Aston Villa might be comparable with Newcastle. That you wouldn't imagine that over the next 5 years that that Aston Villa would be up there trying to win trophies. The thing is that Aston Villa have done quite well over the last few years. They haven't won anything though, and I think Manchester United are one of these teams that, despite being inconsistent, we got the FA Cup, we got the League Cup recently as well, and you go back a few more years, we regularly win domestic cups or get to finals. So it's going to be a step up, isn't it? But it is probably one of these situations where, like the basis, I would say if Manchester United were finishing 10th, there's no way. But this is one of the seasons where it could be that he jumped ship because Manchester United have got Cunha, Mbeumo, Sesko, Bruno. We're bringing in more quality each season, so Rodgers would just add to that. And there's no doubt that we should be finishing. The fact that we might finish above Aston Villa, considering where we started this season, might be a factor where the club trajectories are just different, aren't they? Yeah, Thomas Frank considering actually Thomas Frank was probably doing better than they did recently, but yeah, no, it's so long since we played, isn't it? That's why when people are saying about match pre and predictions, and Neil's gone for the same I went for, I'm just thinking I just haven't seen loads this season. Like I just haven't, I haven't because Manchester United haven't played for so long. It's difficult to predict, isn't it? It feels a little bit like not just an international break, but because we're not in other competitions. Tabasco saying he should have sacked Frank quicker, but you got. I think Tudor was the wrong appointment, definitely. Is there a chance sixth place could get Champions League? I think with this one that it might take for if we're going to have five places. I think it might require a Premier League team. If a Premier League team wins the Champions League, I don't know. I don't know if you can have that. Six sounds a lot, but possibly. Now maybe we could have at the moment. I know the Champions League feels like massively bloated and there's loads of teams in it, but it does seem to be based on like there is some merit. If you look at the Premier League, then the Premier League does have like more good teams than other leagues, so it kind of like represents the best teams in Europe, and it does make sense from that respect. But no, I suppose at the moment I can't see Arsenal winning it. I'm trying to think who else has like got a chance of winning. I don't know. I can see Man City getting knocked out as well. Um, I think it's unlikely we get six places, but if a Premier League team wins it, maybe that is the case. I don't know. Make no mistake, Leeds will be up for it. They obviously hate Man United, and it's going to be a bitter a bitter rivalry. But maybe with this one, if Manchester United get a win, it's a really good win. I think if we get any sort of victory in this game, didn't Leeds draw? Leeds drew with Liverpool, didn't they? And I think Leeds have caused a lot of teams problems this season. If United can beat them, then that would be yeah. I'll be celebrating after the match, regardless of how the game goes. Regardless of I won't be thinking about style of play if we beat Leeds. I'll be happy with beating Leeds. Will Sesko start? Is a tough one. I don't know. I think he should. I think he should start, but I don't know if he will. The Because like coming off the bench has worked really well. There is an argument he might come off the bench, but I would be looking at say against Leeds. It might depend on like fitness levels as well. We haven't really played any matches for a while, so I don't know whether it might come down to Michael Carrick and the other coaches thinking what's the best way of beating Leeds. And if get the game, if people getting tired towards the end of the game, is it worth bringing Seska on after 60 minutes? Is it worth keeping Armadillo or Cunha or Mbuemo or someone on the bench? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think the main thing is though, Man United have got to try and win the game. Like, I don't think we're going to be settling for a point. So I don't know. I'll say I think next season Sesko definitely starts matches like regularly. I think this season it's difficult to predict. I hope he does start, but I won't be. If he's on the bench, I think he'll at least come on like early. Like he won't come on late in the game. He'll come on with enough time to do something if things aren't going that well. But I think if you start Sesko, you'd probably be looking at Ahmad Jallow being on the bench, which I don't mind. As like it's good to have a pacey runner on the bench. But I would be, I'd be happy with that. Actually, I'd be happy if we had Cunha and Buemo, Sesko, Bruno Fernandes behind them. I think that would be. There's a goal score. They're definitely proven goal scorers, aren't they? If anything, I think Mbuemo is more likely to put in better crosses to Sesko than Armadillo is, and maybe Armadillo would be more effective when Leeds get a bit tired towards the end of the match, and it might be quite a good outlet as well if we're under pressure. If there's any other questions before I finish, big up to you, G. Big up to you. Appreciate you. Thank you for the comments as well and the messages over the last couple of weeks as well behind the scenes. Yeah, I'm restarting effectively, but it's not quite a restart because most of the community, well, I say a lot of the core community is still here, but it is a bit of a restart, unfortunately. But we're hoping to get back to hopefully get back to where we were quicker than it took the first time. Hopefully that way. So hopefully it'll be a rebuild, and we can hopefully reconnect with a lot of people. But no, if you're streaming, I will be messaging a few people as well. So hopefully I can take up some options of people that are asked if I want to join their chat, come on for different streams, and I might do that as well to kind of you know, reconnect a little bit. But hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. But no, I said I was going to finish about 2:30. If anyone's got a final question, I'll say this one 50-50, no idea. I think he's available. I think he's in the matchday squad. I don't know whether they risk starting him. I kind of, if I was going to guess, I would say based on Michael Carrick saying that he's looking at the bigger picture, I would say that maybe it's one game too soon. Maybe we're looking at like certainly not match fitness, but maybe what we're looking at with Martinez is he could, if he starts, I don't think he'd be able to play the whole match. And I'm wondering whether Manchester United start off maybe a bit more defensively and they bring on Martinez maybe in the second half. That's kind of my guess, but I don't know. I don't know if behind the scenes he's up for starting, but I think he came back. Actually, I think when he came back the first time, I don't think he made, I can't remember if he made like a substitute appearance first or not. But because we're not playing much football, and we don't have much options. I haven't really read anything that suggests he's starting. Maybe Michael Carrick's just trying to not give away any information. I think he'll be on the bench to start with, and depending on how the game goes, maybe Manchester United might be thinking, let's get a few minutes into him, and then he can start in other matches. That's what I would be thinking. Like I don't know if he can start the whole match, but maybe he could come on for 20 minutes, say, possibly. But that's a guess. I don't know. Neil thinks on the bench. Yeah. Big up to you, Matty. Big up to you, Matty. Um, for, I haven't spoken to you for a while, Matty, but I think you might be able to guess some of what's happened. But we're kind of effectively restarting a little bit on here. Unfortunately, it's not 10K anymore. It's like 400. But we will be looking to build back up, Matty. And if you want to get involved, then feel free. There's socials as well, like pinned. Things are a little bit more organized behind the scenes in terms of like the other groups, the Discord, Facebook, TikTok, etc. But the kind of the hub will be this platform, and it will be YouTube. And if you want to get involved, Matty, let me know. At the moment, I'm kind of restricted by some of the things I can do in terms of what I'm not able to do. Certain things I used to be able to do, like people were asking about memberships. I can't do that. I can't actually redirect. I can't add end screens, and there's other little things I can't do. I think YouTube does restrict kind of how many people can watch smaller channels. It doesn't like push things as much, doesn't promote things. So it's a bit annoying, but we're gonna get back there. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. But no, you're welcome to get involved, Matty, and hopefully things will change quite quickly because we've got a very good community. I think it's just about it's probably just about playing the game with YouTube, isn't it? It's about at the moment, this is probably a channel which is not really categorized. People don't know what channel it is. YouTube doesn't know who to send it to, all that sort of thing. So I did say this as well. Um, Everybody watching is a football fan. I think everybody watching is pretty much a Manchester United fan. If you leave comments after the video, if you there's certain things you can do that does help. If you watch this channel and then you click on when this stream finishes, if you watch any other stream that we've done over the last couple of days, that will send a really positive message to YouTube that you're interacting, you're enjoying the content, you're interacting positively. Like leaving a comment on a video, leaving a comment on a live stream is a massive indicator. Watching like one stream, then watching another one is a massive one as well. If you start watching more than one video on the same channel, then YouTube will kind of go, okay, they'll recognize Matty, Coyote, Rob, they'll recognize you guys as football fans, and they'll realize that this channel will appeal to football fans. That's kind of how it works. And I can't really do anything more other than, um, yeah, I can't really do any more than just like be visible on YouTube because there's a lot of YouTube's got I know hundreds, thousands of like different channels, and the fact that people found this one and then stuck with it is that it just happened. It happened over years. It didn't happen like really short amount of time. But I think it can happen quicker. Like if you're on any social platform at all, whether it's YouTube, whether it's I'm trying to think, whether it's like Facebook or it's Instagram or it's Twitter or any other platform as well, if you share the stream when we're live, it'll just be a way of because ultimately people will watch and not like it, people will watch and like it, but it's just about people finding it. That's the difficult thing as well. It's pretty tricky. Yeah, no, a bit of cheetah bastards as well. I can't. You're one of the people actually that I was so happy that you found the channel again because had no way, no way of contacting you. I could contact a few people, and that's why if you look around kind of how the channel's organized, I use the same banner, I use the same logo, and I'm going to be using kind of the same sort of thumbnail structure because some people said to me in the past that when they were just browsing YouTube, they kind of it became like they go okay, they recognize the format, they recognize the branding sort of thing, and I'm going to keep things the same to start with. The name's obviously different, but everything else will be quite similar. So hopefully the same people that found it will come back. Um, but big up to you, Matty. you're one of the people I could. Um, I was auto sub to this when I found the thumbnail. I think it's because this was like a backup channel. So in a way, there's a couple of people that were already subscribed to it, which is good because it used to be like it used to be a gaming channel like 3 years ago for like FIFA, and I stopped doing that because FIFA was just annoying me. And then it was going to be a back. It was going to be effectively a general football channel for like talking about other teams, and so it kind of like helped a little bit. That's why it started on 400. So that's why it's got a lot of channels, but it's a bit of a fast track. Otherwise, I'd have just started from scratch. It would just mean that we'd have zero subscribers. But that's why also some people are automatically the subscriber count was already here, but some people were automatically moderators. One thing that's interesting, as I did have a quick check, there is not one single account blocked on this channel. Right? So this was pretty much under the radar in terms of like um yeah, there's been no try. So it's effectively like a new community, apart from everybody getting involved. But there's been no accounts blocked, so it's visible to everybody, and it's kind of like a blank slate in terms of how many people how people find it, how people interact, and like everyone's on kind of a level playing field at the moment. So the rules are the same, just respect towards people, and it's all good. Um, yeah, difficult question. I think it's actually if you saw Red Devil Studio in there, he um he was the first channel I joined as a guest, like the first one, and I went on that. And I thought it would be quite good having doing the sort of panel shows. I think the solo thing is just because gradually you just get more confident, I suppose, and then also solo streams gives you a level of flexibility, which I think the thing that's frustrating is when people were saying, right, get some panel shows, it's so difficult to actually organize with people. And so even last night, it was difficult to organize people to come on. And tonight, I've got a couple of guests that were on last night as well. We've got Wizard Better, we've got Helgi, and I'm kind of going to be starting with the same guests because that's what made the channel great to last year. And they're the same people that are going to be associated, same people I know well. But there will be opportunity if people want to get involved in the future, as hopefully things expand, and there will be opportunities if people want to get involved. But at the moment, it's going to be pretty much the level of moderators will be probably relatively low to start with because we don't need to have loads of them. And I think all the moderators at the moment are long-term people I know, and they know kind of what the standards are and know what sort of thing. And thing is, actually, I started off before that on I'm trying to think when it was. It might have been like 2020. I think it might have been around 2020. But I did previously before I went on there. I did my own videos. I just did some short videos, like like prediction type videos, and yeah, like predict. I did like solo, like just upload 4 or 5 minute videos, just predicting the league table, predicting Manchester United games, doing like little previews, little match reactions. And it wasn't until I went on there that I thought actually I can put a panel show together. And then I did a panel shows for about 3 years, and then gradually it took off about probably. I think it really took off about a year ago. So in a way, it doesn't feel like we've. Yeah, I don't feel like we need to go anything too different from this one. So no, I think this time last year we had about 3,000 subscribers. It went up massively to about 10. Now we're back on like 400, but no, there's no doubt that it's it's a viable format and it will just improve over the next few months. This is probably actually based on like a few years' experience. This is probably the quietest time on YouTube. Like April, lots of things are already decided. Man United are out of every competition. Things will improve. Things will get busier when it comes. Like June's probably going to be a big month, but we'll be ready for that. Hopefully, we'll be organised. But before that, I'm gonna have to wrap up. I think I'm gonna be back at 10 p.m. tonight, though. It's gonna be hopefully a good show. Hopefully, we're gonna be talking about a win. But no, it's gonna be quite yeah, it's gonna be quite what's the word? It's gonna be a quite low key to start with. I'm not gonna be adding people, but people are gonna have to be around the channel. Like Cody was around the channel for months before he became a moderator. It's gonna have to be something similar. Man United, yeah, I can't remember when I went on there. I did know the people for a couple of years before, but I used to only be able to stream very late at night, and that's probably it. 2025. Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't find it until then. But no, we're kind of we're on the comeback road anyway. So maybe maybe a month ago is the equivalent of Manchester United finishing 15th, and maybe this is kind of the rebuild, the bounce back. But as always, if people are able to leave a comment on the video, that will help loads. And if people have got ideas and suggestions, then that would be great as well. Because at the moment, I was saying to people, at the moment, the big growth kind of thing is like any sort of news, transfer news, because Manchester United just aren't playing many games. So tonight will be a Manchester United match reaction for the Leeds match. And then tomorrow might be a bit more of a recap on that, but there will be a few more group podcasts because it just enables me to stream a little bit longer because I'm not just talking on my own. But you might have noticed as well, the streams might be a little bit longer in the short term because I just need to boost watch hours and visibility, and that's just something that if anyone's able to rewatch part of the stream after, leave a comment, that will help massively because that will just help YouTube sort things out. It also does help towards ticking boxes. Unfortunately, getting once I get a certain number of subscribers and certain number of watch hours, YouTube promotes it more. There's not much I can do apart from just gradually do that. But thanks everybody for supporting it, and I might actually try and message because I think other Man United fans are other Man United content creators I know will be live tonight as well. I might try and message them and see if anyone's actually able to redirect to me after they finish or something because it's just a way of fast tracking visibility. So I might try and do that. But yeah, if any like rewatching the show and leaving comments is perfect. It really helps. Really helps. Big up to you, United till I die. Another legend. Hope you're good, my friend. Thank you for refinding the channel as well. I think I messaged you yesterday because I said to people I'm gonna anyone I can find, I will message them just to like say we are back. But hopefully anyone's around 10 p.m. tonight. I know there'll be like 100 Man United channels on there live at the same time. But if you can help boost like views and visibility, it will probably be a late one, but we'll be live from probably 10 p.m. ish. So big up to you guys. Thanks for your legends. If you can leave a comment on the video, share things, rewatch streams, leave comments on other streams as well. It would just like really help. Like any view time massively helps. I can't really reiterate that enough. That it just helps because I've got to hit this stupidly high target of 3 to 4 thousand watch hours before I can do a lot of things. It's so annoying. But thank you guys. Appreciate you. I'll be back 10 p.m. I might do occasional short videos, but at the moment they don't really get much visibility. They don't get much promoting. So I'll probably be sticking with longish lives until then. But thanks for sticking with it. I will catch you guys in the next one. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you late tonight.